Man, I'm trying here. Why am I Southern all of a sudden? Man, I'm trying here. I don't know what to.
You're
I don't know what to do.
busier than a centipede in a toe counting contest.
Hey, you doing? I don't know why I did that. It's HIAC Wrestling Podcast. I'm Dan. He's Craig. I pointed the right direction this time. He's Craig over there. Stage right. I and I did say that on Twitter. I did say, hey, I think I'm done with no arena wrestling. I'm really trying, but this is not a knock on the workers who are seemingly being forced to work right now. I'm not going to dwell on all the releases that happened last week. We did that last episode. I encourage you to listen if you can to the last episode, then come back to this one, or just listen to this one. Go backwards. I tried for a little while, and it just my heart's not in it. I just AEW still look good, so I might go back and watch AEW. The WWE, more power to everybody working there. I just there are more serious things than to. I don't know. I just don't have it in me anymore, Craig. I know you try. I feel terrible saying this.
No, don't feel terrible. These are trying times, Dan. I don't know if that's been made aware enough.
Huh?
No audience wrestling holds no appeal to me at all. This is one of the few athletic endeavors that an audience really is. There was a great man who did a album called No Jacket Required. But
Who?
I don't know. His name escapes me. But professional wrestling is audience required. You can't have no audience wrestling. It holds no appeal. We were off last night, Wednesday, our traditional night when we do HIAC talk radio. And even with the night off, I had no interest in watching professional wrestling. I checked in between other shows. The only thing that holds any interest is on AEW, not because of the wrestling, but because of the commentary by Chris Jericho. Because Chris Jericho is a walking variety show, and you tune in not for the match, just to see what he's going to say, just to hear him call Tony Schiavone Schiavone, or
To this day,
yeah,
20 years later.
or to insult the people that are watching. Even if he knows nobody's watching. Because I know you guys got that reference, you stupid idiots. And
Well,
he'll,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Thank you, Gator. Yes, I do have a sexy Sting shirt on, and I didn't even mean to do it because.
Well, if we're looking at our outerwear, I just got my new daywear pajamas, different from my nighttime pajamas.
Very different.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, as you can see, the Marvel superheroes that are involved in proud of the embroidery. There's Captain America, Spider-Man, right there, and if you go upwards, there's an Iron Man somewhere, right there.
Yeah, there he is.
So, yeah. So,
Mine's very intricate. It's a scorpion.
a lot of thought went into that. It's like it's the Japanese flag of t-shirts.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I could never get one or the regular black and white NWO shirt at WCW events because get this, they didn't plan ahead and have enough merchandise at a lot of these shows. I don't know if you've ever.
My NWO shirt I got outside of the Wells Fargo Center when the guy was selling it, bootleg, selling it for $5 a pop.
I was able to finally the last house show of the year, WCW '98. I was able to acquire a Wolfpack T-shirt.
Okay.
And on the it was like the logo was sideways, and on the back I don't remember what it said. It had something on the back, so it wasn't the actual T-shirt. I was like, good enough, finally. I never had one, whatever.
I actually got a Bad Street USA T-shirt at the very last Civic Center show at WCW had, and they were still selling them, so I got to get that. So
nice.
I
They were still. I think the last WCW Civic Center show was. I think '96 is the last one, and the only reason why I said that is I'm literally on the last 45 minutes of Batches Beach '96.
Okay.
And the night before that, they were announcing a house show at the Civic Center, and I assumed they were done. I can't personally remember because I'd been there was a stretch there from '89 to about well, the entirety, the rest of WCW, where somebody took me to a show when it came through Philly, whether it was a house
Hmm.
show or a taping or a pay per view. I was somebody against their will brought me to one of these shows. But I can't remember going to the Civic Center that late. But that's just my
Yeah,
memory of it. But they
it's
were
okay.
still advertising a house show in summer '96 there.
Oh. Well, the Civic Center actually figures into today's edition of the Wrestling Historian, which we'll get to later on in the podcast. Um, you're we have 2 weeks. We have another pay per view coming up,
Do
Money
we?
in the Bank, which has to be the most ludicrous Money in the Bank stipulations ever. Um, I don't know why these aren't being postponed, or it's not like the WWE doesn't have enough in their library. They can have scheduled programming on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays to have a best of Raw or a best of. They can even have hosts or a call-in segment or something. But to have live wrestling every week really is a monotonous. I hate the fact that they're potentially putting their employees at risk, not just the wrestlers. Um, and this is for both companies.
Yeah.
I don't know why Jimmy Havoc is on AEW, and since he lives in London and he has to fly in, so not that he flies in every week, but just him flying in the first place, I just thought was just a really dumb idea. Now AEW doesn't have anywhere near the library that the WWE has, so I can see where their live wrestling would be more a necessity at this point. And obviously, it's Tony Khan's investment. But for the WWE, there's really no excuse. If ESPN can run uh, NBA championships or Super Bowls from the last 20 years on their vast library, I don't know why the WWE can't. And the ratings are going to be fine because there's no one going out to the movies or anything
Nobody's
like
watching
that.
these
So
shows anyway.
yeah,
I say nobody. I wish I could get a million. I wish I could get half of those views on these videos. But you got my point. You got
yeah,
my point. There's uh, there's no excuse for it. A week later, we all know the money that was dealt and the money that is in Vince's hands or not in Vince's hands or they have it reserved. There's no excuse to keep trying to push this. Like everybody
hmm
else that's trying to push this in the country, I'm not going to get into a political debate here because I'm over. I don't care anymore. Right or left, you don't care. I'm done with you anyway.
hmm
But there is enough. There's more than enough to not affect WWE Network viewers to air something every week. AEW could even go back to. They have stuff from All In and then the start of their series in October on through that they could air. And you mentioned something I didn't even think of, the interactive possibilities with the advent of Skype, Zoom, Twitter Live, Facebook Live, Twitch, to have hosted segments of the more than 50 years or even more 60 years with all the libraries they have footage.
Dan,
I don't know.
have
There's no reason to try to advance storylines when nobody's reacting to it.
Dan, Monday nights have a Raw watch party.
Yeah.
Show a great some great matches in the history of Monday Night Raw. Have the wrestlers talk about the match as it's going on, and have them discuss what was it like, or how did this feel, and going, have them go back and forth about what was going on and how they're doing now and how they felt about the match. I mean, even just run it all one of the Stone Cold Broken Skull sessions
Yeah.
when he and Ric Flair or Undertaker look at a match and start talking about it. And it's like, oh man, I was out partying the night before, so I felt really bad right here. Or like right here, you stepped on my foot. That kind of stuff. I mean, we're seeing so many shows, live shows, from home where people are joining just like we are. Why couldn't you do that on Monday night? If the WWE is so hot on dropping the curtain because they're really intent on showing as many empty seats in the performance center as possible. Why not break it even further and just have the wrestlers that are home talk about their matches or show a match to us and have the people that were in the match talk about it. Have Shawn and Razor talk about their ladder match at WrestleMania 10. Get you can geez, any of the New Age Outlaws. Well, you can't get Billy, but
Yeah,
uh,
that's a bit of a
but one
problem
of
right
the
now.
talk about the an old match on Raw. You've got tons uh of matches. You've got an incredible infinite library to discuss anything. And since the wrestlers aren't there, you have them talk at home and talk about the matches that they were in. Let the fans in on what's going on and how those matches made you feel. And you get that live feeling, back. You're watching live wrestling and you get to watch the wrestlers that were part of that match talk about it.
As soon as it was deemed essential
Hmm.
in Florida, I was just like, I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy anymore to address it. And then the next day, we all know the cluster F that happened.
Yeah.
It's just, I appreciate, I appreciate the notion of trying to power through while the world is on fire.
Hmm.
I appreciate the workers that are doing their damnedest to try to bring some normalcy into the world, or alternate it.
Hmm.
Do the live stuff one week, alternate it to let everybody calm down for 2 weeks, pick it up every other week. It's almost to me, and I know a lot of people don't agree with this because they like their weekly wrestling. Watching wrestling longer I can remember on TV. I understand. But to me personally, it's almost worse this way. Being,
Yeah.
shoved down your throat like this.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not disparaging or judging anybody who's watching the product. I get it. I feel no ill will toward those that want to be entertained. Um, Even a little bit part of me got excited that the NHL is going to do their damnedest to finish the season at
Yeah.
alternate locations, at remote locations. There's very little people. I'm not immune to this. I'd rather I well, what if the Flyers win the Stanley Cup in the empty arena? I don't give a damn where they win the freaking thing. I don't care if there's 2 people there or 20,000. It counts. Kiss my ass. But
Dan, Dan, I still have Knicks fans that remind me that they were in the NBA Finals in '99, and it
uh,
was a strike year. There was
yeah,
only
huh?
31 games, but still counts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Uh,
Knicks fans didn't forget.
well, what else they
They'll,
got
they'll
recently?
yeah, they'll remind you they were in the finals in '99.
Yeah. It goes to the guy that was tweeted a couple weeks ago. Why do people still care that the Sixers beat the Lakers that one game in the finals in 2001? They didn't win. I was like, because it's the only team that beat him.
Yeah,
Literally, the only team that beat that Sixers team was
was
Allen
the
Iverson and a bunch of scrubs
yes
in 2001.
in
So
2001.
I'm
Yeah,
celebrating that till I die, or they win another
exactly.
championship.
Yeah,
But as far as wrestling, man, it's just not the same. Sorry.
it's not at all. No, I don't apologize. I feel the exact same way. I can't do it anymore. You never under. This is where this product is fully realized, is only fully realized in front of a live audience. I can watch an empty arena basketball game. If the NBA concluded when they went straight to the playoffs in empty arenas, I'm fine with that. And even if the Sixers don't win, let the chips fall where they may. Same thing, you just said with the Flyers playing an empty arena. I'm cool with that too. Professional wrestling needs an audience. They need feedback, and not just for us, but for the wrestlers as well. Because you can see, and I think it was brought up the first week. Some wrestlers need feedback. Some wrestlers need an audience.
Yeah.
They are not the same without an
That is not
audience.
an insulting
No,
notion.
no. It was like asking a stand-up to perform every night in front of an empty crowd.
Some of them are used to it.
Yeah,
Me.
but you do it every night though,
Yeah.
and you're flying from coast, you're going from town to town, and you got these big halls and there's empty and there's nobody there, and you're still and yeah you'll still perform, but you know
It's like
some you
me.
need that
Never
you
mind.
need the
I
audience
can't finish
reaction.
that thought.
Professional wrestling more than ever.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
an
There.
audience.
I'm just saying. There's plenty to go around. That's just my. That's just my personal. Well, apparently that's our personal
It
feelings
is.
on that. That being
Mm-hmm.
said, sir, let's. Hey, Dave Russell, what's going on?
It
Let's.
is.
He's on Periscope watching us. There you go. Let's take a little look back on when crowds were in the buildings, and you take the show over as we go now to the world of black and white, into the past. It's your turn to take over, sir.
Well, thank you, Dan. And we are already in black and white.
Yeah.
I am black and you are white. I'm as blind as a bat,
I
and you've got
just
sight.
watched that yesterday. The line I forgot about. By a Negro,
Negro,
Negro, let's
Negro,
not
let's not
fight.
fight.
I forgot that was coming, and I almost passed out from laughter. I can't. Jesus Christ, man.
Uh, yeah. Listeners of HIAC Talk Radio, Dan and I are quoting a scene from sketch from Saturday Night Live involving Joe Piscopo and Eddie Murphy, and as Frank Sinatra and Stevie Wonder singing their version of Ebony and Ivory.
That's brilliant. By the way,
YouTube it. Yeah,
Joe Piscopo is the Art Garfunkel of that group.
I agree.
Like Joe Piscopo needed Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy did not need Joe Piscopo. Paul Simon did not need Art Garfunkel. The other way around.
No,
Anyway.
remind me to tell you a funny Art Garfunkel Paul Simon sketch that I think people forgot
Oh,
about.
all
But
right.
they were great. But to tack on to what you were saying, Dan, we are going back to when professional wrestling was uh driven by large crowds, and there was tons of wrestling to be had from all different parts of the country. This, ladies and gentlemen, this special edition of Wrestling Historian, you're going to focus on three things. The three T's, I call them. They're going to be territories, travel, and tournaments, because this week in professional wrestling history was a very special one. So, gentlemen and ladies listening to HIAC Talk Radio, I'm going to take you back to a time where titles were called belts, where instead of the universe, you were fans, and back when sports entertainment didn't have boneyard matches and pre-written and performed sketches, it was called professional wrestling. This is the Wrestling Historian. We're going to go back to April 17th, Daniel. 1994, April 17th, 1994. You probably remember where you were, because that was WCW's first ever Spring Stampede at the Rosemont Horizon in Illinois, not Chicago. The Nasty Boys defeated Cactus Jack and Max Payne
Oh my god.
in a Chicago street fight, where Cactus Jack lost after getting a shovel to the back by Jerry Saggs. Not the first time that Mick Foley would take a shovel to the back, but that was the first time. Spring Stampede. Also, United States champion stunning Steve Austin defeated the Great Muta, one of the few times the Muta was actually a face. And Sting defeated ravishing Rick Rude for the WCW International title.
What a match. What a
Yeah.
match.
Before Rude's injury, and he and Sting had quite the feud. And
classic. We always talk about Ric Flair and Sting, but we never talk enough about that. Go ahead, Craig. Sorry.
No. And the main event was the WCW Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair going up against Ricky Steamboat. And that would end in a double pin, and the title would be vacated. But that would be the last time that Flair and Steamboat would ever have a title match.
What a
It
card.
was in 1994. But special, the dark match of that Spring Stampede April 17th, 1994, featured a wrestling match, if you can call it that, between Danny Bonaducci and Christopher Knight. So Danny Partridge beat Peter Brady in a match that was a dark match. That I don't know if a tape exists, and I don't know if it should, but that happened. April 17th, 1994.
Hold on. I unfortunately had the displeasure of watching a Danny Bonaducci, I said that on purpose, match live at the Lee Core Center at TNA Lockdown 2009. And yes, Craig, this is when Mr. Bonaducci was a morning show DJ. And he was booed out of that building.
Of course.
Nobody cared. Nobody wanted him. Eric Young made him look like $1 billion.
That's what Eric Young does.
Yeah.
He was
Really
another one of the
released
sad
Eric Young.
releases from the company last week. But
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm sorry for the Eric Young was releaser that you got to see Danny Bonaducci wrestle live in 2009.
I'm okay with never ever. Unfortunately, I do have that DVD because I was there, and unfortunately, it's one of the extras.
But that is unfortunate. But you saw him in 2009. That was 15 years.
15 years later.
Oh my God.
I know.
Why?
I know.
Staying on that date, April 17th, 2000. It was a special Monday Night special Monday Night Raw. That same day, WWE did a 6.7 rating and Nitro did a 2.5. So the Monday Night Wars were coming to an end, but this particular Monday night really started to show the influence that Triple H was eventually going to have in the company, because this was the Monday Night Raw that Chris Jericho beat Triple H for the title. Referee Mike Chioda was knocked out of the ring, and Earl Hebner came and counted the pin. And this is when the storyline, Earl Hebner was constantly being abused by Triple H, and so Chris Jericho won the title. And then Triple H called Earl Hebner down and told him to disqualify, to throw the match out. And he did, and took the belt back from Jericho. Then he and Stephanie beat down Earl Hebner. And then later on that night, when Chris Jericho teamed up with, I forget who, might have been The Undertaker, and they lost to Triple H and someone else, and Chris Jericho was pinned again. So, yeah, that was... that was kind of. I remember that Monday Night Raw. It's like at the beginning. It's like, why is this guy getting so much? Where he couldn't even carry Jericho's jock or anyone else. Okay, but that was April 17th, and also April 17th. Happy belated birthday to one of the greatest heels, maybe arguably the greatest heel in some people's lifetime. He would have been 66. Happy birthday! Happy belated birthday, Roderick Toombs, Roddy Piper.
Oh, what? Arguably?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
arguably? Is it?
The only reason, I would say, I in my lifetime, it's Roddy Piper. In wrestling historian mode, a case could be made for the original Sheik, who was the #1 heel for 10 years in a row.
I mean,
in Detroit,
yeah,
Toronto, Texas. I mean, the guy drew more money in 3 different territories. No, but no disrespect, but yes, and the only reason I would put that because the Sheik was never a face.
All right. Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
That's the only caveat there is. But as far as heat, Roddy Piper was like Nolan Ryan of wrestling, just straight heat everywhere he went. And he could just get it from anyone at any time.
Do you think?
But yes, he would have been 66.
Do you think his heel persona is distract? Do you detract from it at all with his hit single?
No,
it's not a terrible song.
No, and his voice is okay.
It's okay.
You know, I've heard worse. I mean, he's no Kamala.
I'm your man. No, he is no Kamala. No. Push it. Pull it.
Let's make love in a rocking chair.
Oh, that would make. Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Only if it's a wicker rocking chair. Wow, I said that without screwing it up.
Wow, you've been practicing. Yes, a happy belated birthday to the late great Hot Rod,
Great. Now I gotta
Roddy
wash my
Piper.
hands.
April 18th, Dan. This was a day in wrestling history. This really showed this was professional wrestling at its finest. Because April 18th, 1981, I tell you exactly where I was.
Oh boy.
I was at an afternoon show right here in Philadelphia at the Spectrum, sitting up in the top level of the Spectrum, eating a barbecue spare rib sandwich, watching a great Saturday afternoon card. And I got to see Bob Backlund defend the WWF title against Killer Khan. I got
Killer
to see Pat
Khan.
Patterson against Sergeant Slaughter, and I got to see in the last match of that day was Tony Atlas pinning Hulk Hogan.
Oh. All right.
But the thing was, one of the attractions was Andre the Giant and Tony Gurria were going to take on the Moondogs, Rex and
Yeah.
King.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the time King had left. He was Sailor White was his real name, and he couldn't get a visa back into the country.
Uh oh.
So even though they were the WWF Tag Team Champions, uh, Sailor White, King of the Moondogs, couldn't wrestle. So he was missing house shows all across the country. So taking his place that afternoon, Andre the Giant and Tony Gurria faced Rex and Sergeant Slaughter. So Sergeant Slaughter not only wrestled his arch nemesis Pat Patterson, but he also wrestled in a tag team match against Andre with Rex against Tony Gurria and Andre the Giant. Now that was in the afternoon.
Oh, there's more.
130 miles later that night, that exact same card wrestled in Landover, Maryland.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And the last match again was Tony Atlas pinning Hulk Hogan. And that would be the last time Hulk Hogan wrestled in the WWF. And that would be his last loss in the WWF. So that was his last match. Remember that. Okay?
Wow.
April 8,
I'm
17,
with you.
1981.
Sure.
I said it was the exact same card in the afternoon, except Andre the Giant wasn't there for that Landover, Maryland show that night. Because that night, on that same date, April 18th, 1981, Andre the Giant was in New Orleans for the Superdome Spectacular. The Mid-South Tag Team Title Tournament took place in the Superdome. And Andre the Giant was teaming up with Dusty Rhodes in that tournament. And that tournament was so packed, Dan. You had Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes, the Samoans, Appa and Sika, and the Freebirds, Terry Gordy and Michael Hayes. But none of those three teams won.
Okay.
And none of those three teams even faced each other. That's how big this tournament was. The tournament was actually won by the Grappler and Super Destroyer, and they defeated the team of Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, and the Junkyard Dog.
Interesting.
But that's how big the tournament was. So Andre the Giant was in Philly that Saturday afternoon, and it was in New Orleans that night to wrestle in the Mid-South Tag Team Title Tournament. And like I said on both shows, Tony Atlas pinned Hulk Hogan that afternoon in Philly and pinned Hulk Hogan that night in Landover, Maryland. And that would be Hulk Hogan's last match in the WWF. 1 year later, April 18th, 1982, Hulk Hogan would pin Nick Bockwinkel for the AWA Heavyweight Championship. The first of 2 times that Hogan pinned Bockwinkel, won the belt, and the belt was taken from him. And this time it was both men used a foreign object. Nick Bockwinkel used his first. Hulk Hogan used his second, knocked out Nick Bockwinkel, won the belt in front of 16,000 people in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then the next television TV show, AWA TV show, the AWA president, Stanley Blackburn, took the belt off Hogan because he used a foreign object.
Good.
The next time it happened, he pinned Nick Bockwinkel again, but because there was interference by Bobby Heenan, it was disqualified.
Gator
Had
would like to point out that Tony Atlas is a Gator Pit member.
Oh, I'm glad we put that in. I'm sorry. Thank you, Gator.
Yes.
That yes, the great Tony Atlas.
Sorry,
He's
I
also
had to mention that. I'm sorry.
no. Well, I was going to mention that later because Tony Atlas is coming up later on in the historian Gator. If you could just wait a damn minute.
Yeah, Gator.
This wasn't your only. This isn't the only mention of Tony Atlas in this edition of the historian Gator. Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Is there any mention of Tito Santana?
Yes.
Yes! Haha, Gator. He kicked your ass. Good.
Yes, there is a mention of Tito Santana later on in this historian. I know I'll get to it. Okay, I'm going back and I'm going all the way up to today. Right now we're on April 18th.
I'm never gonna
I
hear
haven't
the
got
end
to
of
April.
this.
I haven't got to April 22nd yet. Okay, just hang on. All right. But Hulk Hogan, a year after he lost his last match in WWF, pinned the AWA Heavyweight Champion. And again, for the first two times that his championship was negated.
Huh.
So
why?
And again, if Vern Gagne had any sense of normalcy or could see the amount of houses that Hulk Hogan was selling out all across the AWA in Minnesota, in Chicago, in Nebraska, and all the AWA strongholds, had he had any forethought and put the belt on Hogan, the AWA championship on Hogan, this is Hogan coming off a Rocky III.
Yeah.
Which was still in theaters at this time.
Yep.
When Hogan was coming out to the ring to Eye of the Tiger. This is 2 years before WWF. 3 years before WrestleMania. So had that title match, had that title stuck right there, it may have been the AWA that would have been the leader in professional wrestling, sports entertainment, TV. Instead of the WWF.
That one confuses me more than WCW because WCW's cluster F, as Harry reminds me daily, is well documented.
Yes.
And several factors. The AWA one is as well, but I just when I go back and I look at the things, I'm like, Vern, what are you doing? You have these gifts, they're handed to you, man. What are you doing?
Because you remember, and Hulk Hogan, between the time he left the WWF in '81 until the time they came in the AWA, was pretty much unemployed. He had a great run in '81, and his matches with Andre the Giant were great, but he couldn't get booked anywhere. He went to Los Angeles, he went to Florida, he went to Memphis to go up against Jerry Lawler, and it wasn't until Stallone saw him when he wrestled in Los Angeles. And cast him for Rocky III, that he blew up, and he was on the Johnny Carson show before he got to the WWF. So you have the hottest professional wrestler on earth in your company, and you had Rick Martel, you had the Rockers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, you had Jesse Ventura, you had Gene Okerlund, you had Bobby Heenan, you have all these money-making under your own umbrella. But I think Jerry Lawler said it best when he was the AWA champion. It's like you could have the greatest idea in the world, but if Vern Gagne didn't think of it, it's not the greatest idea in the world. And Vern Gagne had a bias towards Hogan because obviously he and Nick Bockwinkel go back a long way. Nick Bockwinkel was an AWA original. Same with Heenan, same with Ray Stevens. But putting the belt on Hogan he saw as a detriment. I don't know why he couldn't look at the sold out crowds everywhere and the national media that would follow Hulk Hogan during his matches. When he was in the AWA, after when Rocky III came out, Evening Magazine, People Magazine were all there to take pictures of him. So he was getting national exposure for being Thunder Lips. You put the belt on him, that national exposure doubles. Now he's a world champion. Now the most popular wrestler on earth is your world champion. So everyone's looking at the AWA. And now the AWA can expand. Now they get TV deals. Now they're on cable outlets with everyone else, but their rates are going to double because they have got Hulk Hogan. But, but 1982, very special date. On that same date, Dan, I said April 18th was a very important date. April 18th, 1986, started the weekend of the Warriors, or as I call it, Road Warrior Weekend, April 18th, 1986. I know exactly where I was. I was right here in Philadelphia at the aforementioned Philadelphia Civic Center for a huge NWA card, which featured uh, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and Tully Blanchard in a six-man match against Dusty Rhodes, Ronnie Garvin, and Wahoo McDaniel.
Ronnie.
And the Road Warriors
Just like a
defeated,
Ronnie sang.
just like I run to say,
Ronnie
in that same card, the Road Warriors defeated the Midnight Express for the NWA Tag Team Championship, but it was a dusty finish. The referee didn't see Jim Cornette interference, and when Hawk pinned Dennis Condrey, all 8,000 of us in the Civic Center thought the Road Warriors had finally won the NWA Tag Team Championship, but it was not to be. So we were all happy. Then we all went home sad, and that was Friday night in Philadelphia. The very next day was okay. That was Friday night, April 1986. So that was Friday night in Philadelphia. Remember that. Staying on that same date. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's okay.
April 18th. That same day, April 18th, 1989. The NWA International Champion Jumbo Tsuruta defeated the United National PWF Heavyweight Champion Stan Hansen to become All Japan's first Triple Crown champion. Now, the Triple Crown champion, Jumbo Tsuruta was the first. The Triple Crown title would go on to be one of the most respected championships in all of Japanese wrestling. Stan Hansen will eventually hold it, but so would Terry Gordy, the Great Muta, Vader. And it started in 1989, and it was just recently defended on March 23rd of this year. So that's how far it goes. Yeah, Great Suwama won the title March 23rd of this year, so 3 weeks ago in Tokyo, Japan. So that's how long the All Japan Triple Crown is still in effect. But the first champion was crowned April 18th, 1989. Yeah. But yeah, so I told you the weekend of the Warriors, April 18th, 1986, right here on Friday in Philly. April 19th, 1980, Ric Flair defeated Superfly Jimmy Snuka for the United States Heavyweight Championship. That might have been the first documented time, the first time I remember, that Ric Flair kicked out of the Superfly Splash en route to winning the United States Championship. That was the first time I saw it. I witnessed it was on Georgia Championship Wrestling when Superfly totally squashed Kevin Von Erich and Kevin Von Erich kicked out. That was in 1982. But in 1980, when Ric Flair defeated Jimmy Snuka for the United States title, Ric Flair kicked out of the Superfly Splash. Now we get to the rest of the Warrior weekend. April 18th was right here in Philly. April 19th, back to the Superdome in New Orleans, was the first day of the first annual Jim Crockett Cup Memorial Tag Team Tournament. See where I was going with this. The Jim Crockett the first ever Jim Crockett Tag Team Tournament at the Superdome was a 2-day, well, it was 2 shows on the same day, I should say. You had an afternoon show and an evening show. And you had tag teams, Dan, from every territory that wasn't the WWF. You had Rip Oliver and the Grappler from Pacific Northwest. You had the Batten Twins, who were the Central States Tag Team Champion. You had Buddy Landell and Bill Dundee from Memphis. You had the Sheepherders from the Southwest Championship Wrestling. Terry Taylor and Dr. Death Steve Williams from the Mid-South. The Japanese contingent, Giant Baba and Tiger Mask, were in the tag team tournament. And from the Canadian International Wrestling, the tag team of Rick Martel and Dino Bravo were all in this tournament. Not to mention the three most influential tag teams of the decade of the 80s were in this tournament. the Rock and Roll Express, the Fantastics, and the Fabulous Ones were all in this tournament.
Phew.
Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson were in this tournament. This was huge. But all that took place on April 19th, 1986. The Road Warriors would defeat Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood, the Midnight Express, and in the finals, the makeshift tag team of Magnum TA and Ronnie Garvin. It was supposed to be America's team, Magnum TA and Dusty Rhodes, but of course, Dusty Rhodes took himself out of that match so he could be in the main event with Ric Flair for the NWA Heavyweight Championship. But the Road Warriors would go through Wahoo McDaniel, Mark Youngblood, the Midnight Express, and Magnum TA and Ronnie Garvin to become the first Jim Crockett Memorial Tag Team Tournament winners. So Friday night in Philly, Saturday night in New Orleans, the Road Warriors would reign supreme. The very next day, April 20th, 1986, the end of Road Warrior weekend. We started Friday in Philadelphia, Saturday in New Orleans, winning the Crockett Cup. Well, Sunday, they were in the Hubert Humphrey Metrodome for AWA Wrestle Rock
Oh no.
in front of 22,000 folks. Now, 22,000 people for a wrestling match is nothing to sneeze at. Incredibly impressive. 22,000 people in the Metrodome looks very sad.
Bad. It looks bad.
Yes. But still in all, 22,000 people were there for AWA's Wrestle Rock.
We're not gonna talk about the rap.
Yeah, and if you ever want to see Shawn Michaels rap, the Wrestle Rock rap,
Or Kurt Hennig, Scott
or
Hall,
Scott Hall, yeah.
Vern Gagne,
Mhm.
Gagne, whatever. You don't
But
want to see it
the folks that were on that card, again, the Road Warriors faced Jimmy Garvin, and Michael Hayes in a cage, and Rick Martel went to double countout with Harley Race. But one of the oddest attractions there was the tag team match between the Fabulous Ones, who were also in the Crockett Cup tag team tournament. They went to Minnesota, and they lost to the team of Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo,
though. Hey.
who weren't wrestling anywhere at the time. They had left. They both left the WWF. Neither one of them wrestled for the NWA, but they pulled them out of obscurity to wrestle the Fabulous Ones.
Wow.
Wahoo McDaniel, Tiger Mask, Rick Martel, Jimmy Garvin, all, and the Fabulous Ones, like I said, all were in New Orleans the previous day in the Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament, but they were all on an AWA card the next day. And if you were Wahoo McDaniel and Jimmy Garvin and the Road Warriors, you wrestled all three of those days too. You were in Philly on Friday, in New Orleans on Saturday, and in Minnesota on Sunday. And the Road Warriors went undefeated that entire weekend.
Wow.
That was Road Warrior
Warriors
weekend.
Wow.
Yes. And in a tournament, in the tag team tournament that had every territory imaginable, and in the AWA, you also had wrestlers from the AWA, I mean from the NWA, and World Class and Japan, because Giant Baba also wrestled on that card,
Oh, that's right.
and he was also in the Crockett Cup tournament. But back then, territories were still a thing, and you could wrestle. How it showed you how insane the travel was,
Yeah.
where guys were in three different parts of the country, 3 different days, in front of some huge crowds for some huge matches. But yeah, that was the end of Road Warrior Weekend, April 20th, 1986. Exactly 10 years later, April 20th, 1996, right here in Philadelphia, was the third annual Hostile City Showdown. Now, I bring that up only because of one of the most interesting angles in ECW history, maybe in wrestling history, because it hadn't been done to this point. It was the Tommy Dreamer, Beulah McGillicuddy, Kimona Wanalea love triangle, where Shane Douglas came to the ring to face Tommy Dreamer and told him that Beulah was not pregnant. Gasp.
Oh my god.
but that Beulah was in fact having an affair. This is where Amber gets excited because she
Yeah,
loves the story.
apparently.
Um,
Ooh.
and who was it? Who is he? Who is he? And it was a girl. Dun
Oh
dun
my god.
dun. Yes, and it was the aforementioned, aptly named Kimona Wanalea from Raven's Flock.
It was me.
It was me.
I'm
Very, very cute.
hardcore. I'll take them both on. Like that's some
And
great
as he grabs both women by the hair
Yeah.
in pre-sexual harassment times, and said, "I'm hardcore. I'll do them both." To quote Phil Hartman's Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't matter
Do
to me. I've
both.
done them both.
Lovely ECW.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
that's fun to go back and watch.
Oh, and I forgot, April 19th, happy belated birthday to, say bye, Amber.
Bye, Amber.
Bye.
Goodbye.
We're talking about great heels of all time. April 19th would have been the 81st birthday of Douglas Baker, Dan. But his friends called him Ox.
Yes.
Maybe the
Yes.
definitive heel look. I have never seen a more sinister, dastardly. Ox Baker, if you were going to draw a villain, it would look like
It
Ox
would look
Baker.
like Ox. Yeah.
The mutton chops, the eyebrows. He had Larry Hagman eyebrows before Larry Hagman.
Larry Hagman eyebrow.
The tape fist, and Ox Baker's claim to fame or claim to infamy, through no fault of his own, he wrestled two men. One of them was Ray Gunkel, and I forget who the other one was. And after the match of both men, after he wrestled two of these men, they died.
What?
Ray Gunkel died of a heart attack in the locker room afterwards, and I forget. And forgive me, the other person Ox Baker wrestled, he passed away after he wrestled Ox. But because there was no internet, and because of kayfabe, the when you talked about Ox Baker wrestled two men and they died. Ox Baker killed two men after wrestling them.
Okay.
So, and I went with it, and I was already afraid of Ox Baker anyway, just for the way he looked. But it's
Yeah.
like, who can survive a match with Ox Baker? I remember one of the titles from the Bill After magazines. Ox Baker's already killed two men. Who's next?
Who's next?
And of
Your
course,
children are
any
next.
sci-fi fans, of course, will always remember Ox Baker as the nemesis that Kurt Russell faced in the great movie Escape from New York. But also in Metro, the Hard Punch, and YouTube, a riot in Cleveland may have caused the worst riot in professional wrestling history. Between Ernie Ladd, Johnny Powers, in Cleveland, he had chairs were thrown in the ring, knives. He still had a dent in his head to the day he died from a chair that was thrown at him from that Cleveland riot. Again, I want to watch it now. It's really scary.
For those who are doubting, like, oh, Riot, the footage is, if you type in Ox Baker Riot, right on YouTube, it's actually quite crazy to watch.
It was crazy. Jim Cornette told the story when Ernie Ladd told him the story. Ernie Ladd, believe it or not, was a face.
Yeah.
And he got attacked by his tag team partner, and Ox Baker was a heel, and he gave Ernie the heart punch. And Ernie went down, but Ox kept hitting him with the heart punch. Now, Ox Baker already had the reputation of killing two men, so Ernie Ladd sold it, and he wasn't moving. And he kept punching him. And the way Jim Cornette tells the story, Ernie Ladd said, "Ox, the natives are getting restless." And by then, the fans had started to storm the ring, and they couldn't get out, and they had to make their way, and chairs were thrown, and got very ugly. But Ox Baker, we talking about great heels. Roddy Piper, the Sheik, Ox Baker has to be one of them. But he would have been 81, April 19th. Fast forward to April 21st, 1980. Ken Patera defeated Pat Patterson in Madison Square Garden to become the second man to ever hold the Intercontinental Championship and the first man to ever win the Intercontinental title in the ring. Because if you remember, Dan, and I know you do, that Pat Patterson won the Intercontinental title in a tournament in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Yes, that actually happened.
Yes, it did. Well, Ken Patera became the second Intercontinental Champion and the first man to ever win the Intercontinental title in the ring, April 21st, 1980. That same day, April 21st, 1984, Ricky Steamboat would defeat Dick Slater for the United States Championship, a title he wouldn't hold again for another 10 years. And that would be when he faced Ric Flair at Spring Stampede.
I was going to say,
he held it around then. But he won it April 21st, 1984 from Dick Slater. April 22nd, year 2000, on ECW's 5th annual Cyber Slam, Tommy Dreamer.
That's not what you think it means.
Realized his dream of he defeated Taz and became, for the first time, the ECW Heavyweight Champion. And he would hold it for all of 4 minutes before being defeated by Just Incredible.
Vince McMahon booking the show?
It felt like it. But, so I wanted to pull that out just to give Tommy Dreamer some love. Which brings us to today. And I said there were 3 T's. There was travel. What else did I say? Travel, titles. What was the other thing?
Territories.
Travel, territories, and tournaments.
Tournaments.
Today, Dan, April 23rd.
It's the name of the episode. Please don't forget.
I'm not going to forget. I'm sorry. Today's date, April 23rd, 1977. Bob Backlund would defeat Harley Race for the Missouri State Heavyweight Championship. Now, I've said many times on this very podcast that the Missouri State title has always been a stepping stone to the World Championship. Whoever wins the Missouri State title back in the day was going to be a future World Champion. This was Bob Backlund's coming out party. He defeated Harley Race for it, and within a year, he would be the WWF Heavyweight Champion and would hold that belt for 5 years. But Bob Backlund defeating Harley Race made him a made man.
Like, it's not like I don't know the information, but to this day, still, when you hear he held it for 5 years, it's like...
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's better.
Yeah, it's better. But April 23rd, 1978, Paul Jones and the aforementioned Ricky Steamboat would win the NWA Tag Team Championship in a tournament, defeating the Anderson brothers, Cyclone Negro, Muggsy McGraw, and Ken Patera and the Masked Superstar.
Don't say sorry. There's a lot of information up in your head. Would that be
But
Gene and Ole?
What?
Was that Gene and Ole Anderson?
Yes, that was Gene and Ole Anderson in 1978.
I just wanted to show that I knew who that was.
Yeah. So today, April 23rd, 1978, Paul Jones and Ricky Steamboat win the NWA Tag Team title in a tournament. Exactly 10 years later, on this day, 1988, the third and final Crockett Cup tournament will be won by Lex Luger and Sting.
What?
They would defeat Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson in a 2-day tournament. For day 1 was in Greenville, South Carolina, and day 2 was in Charlotte. And I said the first Crockett Cup had teams from every other territory. This Crockett Cup had 22 teams in it, all from WCW. And,
what year was that again?
Sting. What you say?
What year was that again?
1988.
88. I was going to say 89, but I'm like 88, 89 sounds right. I mean, it was just WCW teams at that point.
Yeah, 88 was the third and final Crockett Cup, won by Sting and Lex Luger, managed by Magnum TA.
Yes.
Yeah. April 23rd today, 30 years ago today, 1990, in Texas, Kurt Hennig would defeat Tito Santana.
Oh, no! We don't give Santana... Oh, Boo! Damn
in
it!
the finals of a tournament to become the new Intercontinental Champion.
That backfired on me.
Yeah, because Ultimate Warrior, who was the Intercontinental Champion after he beat Hulk Hogan in that year's WrestleMania, had to give up the Intercontinental title. Tournament was held, and Kurt Hennig defeated Tito Santana in the finals to win his first Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. And today, 1992, the Heavenly Bodies would defeat the Fantastics in the finals of a tournament to become the first Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions.
Oh wow!
And not to be, I said I would mention it later on. Happy 66th birthday to Tony Atlas. There it is.
Gator
And
pit
happy
member.
43rd birthday to the one, the only. I would tell him this to his face, but I can't see him. Happy 43rd birthday to John Cena.
Wow. See, how old again?
43.
The current greatest match ever in WrestleMania history. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, not for that one, but yes.
It was the most. It was the best produced match in.
That's true. Anyway, Craig, sorry.
History. Yeah, and that, gentlemen and ladies, is called the wrestling history.
So, we talked about it earlier. You wanted to go out on a high note. Let's go out on a high note. See what I did there? Thank you very much.
Say that.
I did mean to make your dad go poof. No. He saw it was wrestling and then he doesn't care, so he left. He doesn't care about wrestling. Not your fault. So I can't believe he actually checked in. This pandemic has got him on social media more than me nowadays. It's kind of creepy. 3:45 in the morning. I see he's liked wait, what? Go to bed.
Wow.
So yes, ending the show on a high note. They're going to have the Money in the Bank match on the roof of Titan Towers. I will still call it. Apparently they were going to build, like, they're staying there longer than they wanted to. They were moving out of Titan Towers, I think. New facilities and everything. Listen, the Performance Center, I would have liked to see them produce more stuff. I saw the conversation started online a couple weeks ago, and I thought people were like, "This is a joke." I'm like, I actually thought it was a good idea. They should do it on the roof. They should have the shows on the roof, open air. Would look different since AEW. I'm gonna say it again. Is pulling off the empty arena as much as we talked about how it's kind of at the beginning of the show how we're just like whatever. The empty arena is being pulled off well by AEW. Past all of our reservations of doing it in the first place. The presentation much better than WWE. Doing it on the roof, old school Raw intro. It would look different. You'd be open air. You could. I just the news that was coming out this week that not everybody's practicing the social distancing. Things that should be ingrained in your mind at this point. But I think the roof is a good idea. However, the timing on these. Woo, my voice. The timing on these. Hi, everybody. I'm 12. The timing is just. Wow. I just. As much as we both said at the beginning of the show, watching is a bit difficult. I kind of want to tune in to see this train wreck, to see what's going to happen. Somebody's going to do the stunt off the roof. They're going to Halloween Havoc 95 that with Giant going off the roof at Cobo Hall after the Monster Truck Wrestling match.
I agree. I'm not a fan of anything on the roof unless you're the Beatles performing.
Apple, yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. I don't think any athletic competition should be held on the roof of anything. It's just stupid. I get for visually it looks great, and they're gonna do it whether I like it or not. I'm just not a fan. I consider that just like wrestling in the crowd. We were talking about ECW earlier. It's just a lawsuit waiting to happen. So I'd rather not. Of course, I say all that, and I'll be watching too, just for curiosity's sake, or just to see what a train wreck it could be. But I'm already on board with not being a fan.
I understand. I can't disagree with you there. Hey, Dan's balls went back in for a second.
And balls went back in for a second.
I don't. We're gonna leave that for another kind of stream. I understand. I do think it's they're gonna be throwing ideas at the wall now that this is all upended. I don't know. I have to go out and go to the grocery store tonight, which I'm not happy about. So I'm more worried about that.
Yes, that
and,
should cause you more concern than
oh, when my voice. Oh, when my voice squeaked, my balls went. Yes, they did go back in. Well,
Gotcha.
I have a comment.
I got a hold of mine, so I'm good. Thank you.
I'll leave those. I'll leave that comment for next time. But yeah, Money in the Bank. It'll be interesting to see how they pull it off. Craig, where can people follow you, sir?
They can follow me if they want to on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Lagons, CraigLiggeons.
Follow me on Twitter at DanLaw83, the HIAC Talk Radio podcast, the HIAC Wrestling Podcast. Sorry. Is at VOCNation.com, VOC Nation Radio Network. If you type those words, VOC Nation Radio Network, into your iPhone or Android podcast app, whatever you use, you will find our episodes and everybody else's episodes. VOCNation.com will also do the trick. For Craig Lagons, I am the above average comedian Dan Calchico. We will see you next week. Have a good one.